Hello, I'm Hannah, and this is Hannah's Books. I have a whole slew of videos planned out in my head, but I haven't gotten to them yet, partly because I've had a small adventure lately. I've just returned from a long weekend traveling north and wanted to make a very short video telling you about it since our travels were to some degree fairly bookish. The trip started out just perfectly. We got up before the crack of dawn and turned on an audiobook we've been listening to on and off in the car over the last few months, John Steinbeck's East of Eden. Even now that we're home, we haven't quite finished, but I hope I can convince David to come as a guest on this channel for a bit of a discussion at some point later this month after we listen to the end. We both have long loved Steinbeck's The Grapes of Wrath, but East of Eden is a new read for both of us. While we listened to the audiobook, we drove up to the outskirts of New York City, near where my husband grew up. We went to visit Bear Mountain, a place we used to go to every fall when we were dating, and up in New York visiting David's parents. I think I mentioned Bear Mountain in one of my Q&A videos last month. As we got close, we started seeing bright orange and yellow leaves, something we really aren't seeing a whole lot of here in the DC area yet. We took a short little walk, trying to avoid the crowds of people in the viewing areas at the top of the mountain, and then walked off into a quiet section of the woods for a picnic. What a perfect way to split up the driving. And then we kept driving north and reached Boston. We popped into our Airbnb and unloaded our bags. Then David drove me over to Hyde Cottage, where I got to spend an amazing evening with Steve Donahue. I think we spent something like 7 hours talking about reading books, writing reviews of books, writing books ourselves, selling books, and also about all the parts of our lives that don't necessarily have quite so much to do with books. What a wonderful time. We filmed a video right before we opened our calzones and red wine, which Steve has posted. I'll link to it below. We filmed a second video after the calzones and wine, and more wine, which very sadly didn't seem to save properly. So I guess you don't get to see my bright red cheeks that seem to come even when I drink just a sip of wine. I think I'm just going to have to go visit again sometime soon, and we'll make a redo. While seeing Steve Donahue is always wonderful, the real reason for our trip to Boston was to see our son Abraham, a senior in college. David and I stayed in an Airbnb about 1.5 miles from campus, and although our place was just a room in a random duplex on a relatively commercial street, the walk to campus went along a street filled with stunning mansions with large yards, large at least for the urban area. and many of them were also decorated for Halloween. We were also decorated for Halloween. This weekend, our son was directing a play at his college, and David and I were thrilled to have tickets to see it on stage. The play was the first production to open on campus in something like 20 months, which might sound like a bigger deal than it actually was, since another play opened the same weekend my son's did, although I guess the first performance began slightly later. Anyway, the play was Shakespeare's The Winter's Tale, and it was fantastic. COVID restrictions meant that the ushers were checking everyone's vaccination cards carefully, and that all audience members had to wear masks, and that the number of attendees was quite limited. All of the actors had to wear masks as well. I was thrilled about the first 3 rules, but a little skeptical about the 4th, but it worked out just fine. One of the things that made me happiest is that The Winter's Tale has long been one of my son's very favorite Shakespeare plays, and he said sometime late in his high school years that he wanted to stage the play during his senior year. If I'm remembering correctly, he even mentioned that plan during his alumni interview, a part of U.S. college applications in a lot of schools, if you're unfamiliar with what I mean. I am tickled that he made it happen. As an almost lifelong Shakespeare nerd interested in Shakespeare's original staging conditions, Abe's goal from early on had been to have a very minimalist set and a small cast of actors, many of whom played more than one role. He wanted the emphasis to be on the language and on the meaning and emotion behind that language. Little did he know how perfect that kind of minimalist production would work out during a time of pandemic regulations. It was wonderful to see the play, and it was terrific to get to spend some time with Abraham over the course of the weekend. The cold and the rain made it a bit harder than we hoped to spend time outdoors, but we managed to eat bagels outside, get takeout from a Turkish brunch place, pick up some quick meals from a grocery store, which we ate in our Airbnb, and then take a walk around the campus on Halloween morning. I was thrilled to introduce Abe to the Brattle Bookshop, and both he and I found some amazing additions. Coming up in a day or two, I hope to make a video showing you my personal Brattle haul, as well as perhaps some pictures of the cool books that my son picked up there. I promise I will also soon film a Victober wrap-up, probably focusing mostly on George Eliot's Daniel Deronda, a book which really fascinated me. I also want to tell you about some of the nonfiction I'm reading this month, as well as some nonfiction I read earlier in the year, but not yet discussed here. Unfortunately, I may be a bit later with my filming than I hoped, as I try to finish up a couple of projects with deadlines. But I promise to be back with those videos shortly. Before I sign off today, though, I want to share a little bit I filmed in a local public garden near where we live, late in the summer when everything was still in bloom. In addition to stunning flower beds, there was a simple but quite moving memorial to people who have suffered and died from COVID-19. I'll end with that footage. Take care. I hope to see you soon.